Hello, hello. Nice to be here, everybody. Nice to be in Helsinki. And I'm glad it was opened with a song from Journey. Excellent, excellent. Hi, I'm Jennifer, and I'm here to talk to you about the illusion of... I don't know if I like this title screen so much. This font. Like, it's a bit drafty, makes sense. Illusion of iteration, I'm iterating here. Okay, let's try something bigger. Yeah, okay, that feels good. Let's keep going bigger. I'm American, I like bigger. Yes, yeah, I like that. I like the on its own. But it feels a bit centered, like it's a bit unrealistic. No one's that balanced, so I'm gonna go push. There we go, that's nice. I like it. It's got a lot of edginess to it. But it's got nothing to do with iteration anymore. Let's go back to the little iterations. Yeah, it's the first one. It's with the font I like. Yeah. You can spend hours on something and still be very unhappy. But that is the way it is. It's better in some ways, worse in others. I still dream of the giants and what it could mean and how it could be used. But pencils down, we must move on. So, this is the agenda for today. I will begin with introductions iterated. Then we will go sailing through uncertainty, and then into sea change, and then finally end with persistence and resistance. Introductions iterated. The Good Place. Who is familiar with this show? A lot of you. Hey, cool. So it's on NBCU, it's on Netflix. It's a comedy series about a heaven-like afterlife. And here, the architect, who is Ted Danson with the bow tie, he goes through 800 iterations of creating the perfect good place, their version of heaven. One iteration has a bunch of yogurt places. Another one really goes into Italian food. And then there's one that goes in on clam chowder. I don't know who's familiar with clam chowder, but I think the equivalent here in Helsinki is, let me see if I can pronounce it right, lohikeito? Yay! The salmon soup. Famous here. When you come to Helsinki, come try it. It's a clam chowder fountain in the middle of town square. Imagine that in the middle of Helsinki city center. Quite intense. But it's a strong example of iteration for iteration's sake. The architect was fooled by the illusion of iteration's supposed strengths. Not all iterations work. You can see iterations through evolution. Here are some extinct ones. Here is the hallucigenia, which is a beautiful name. And then this one on the right, I believe CNET refers to, is its technical name, Dino Shark with a Snout of Doom. That is the official name of it. It's here to fuel nightmares in the most hilarious of ways. But also, it's another good example of, did we need to iterate? Or did the illusion of iteration take over? Let's see. Oh, yes, me. I am Jennifer Estaris, she, her. I am a game director over at ustwo Games, working on Monument Valley 3 at the moment. I also was at SYBO, working on Subway Surfers, Disney, Nickelodeon. I did a lot of social change indie studios. I currently live in London, but before that I was in Copenhagen for a number of years, Los Angeles, New York, and I was raised in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a Filipina-American, and I am a mom. There's my daughter in the audience. Hi, daughter. And I'm a climate justice activist. So I've gone through many iterations of self. I started off as a programmer, and then I went into creative writing, became a game designer. Now I'm a game director, and I'm doing climate activism work. And who knows what's next? In addition to making games, I also talk about them, like here. My current iteration or instantiation is on the intersection of games and climate change. And here's an image of me. I'm in the tiger outfit. There's my daughter and my husband. This is us taking to the streets This is the end of Extinction Rebellion's Biodiversity March in London. It ended with a die-in where about 50,000 of us lay in the streets for a few minutes. It was surprisingly cozy. It was a very warm road. You're staring up at the blue sky, looking at the tree crown shyness. It's kind of like, well, I guess the equivalent of a sauna here in Finland. There's something interesting about this gentle, cozy setup. Activism can be cozy. Activism can be playful. The day before March, XR, Extinction Rebellion, has family-friendly events, Legos, puppet shows, sign making. I host a booth with board games based on nature and nature-based solutions. The climate movement can iterate. It's not all about just being militant rebels. It can be more playful, more cozy, more engaging. Even Extinction Rebellion has iterated from being more broad when it comes to nonviolent civil disobedience, blocking roads and calling for the media attention on the climate emergency, to being more targeted, focusing on insurance companies, that weak spot, in a lighthearted way. We're going to now watch a video by fellow IGDA Climate SIG and XR member and friend Alex Orchid and his team.
This is Red Rebel Leader. I'm approaching the target.
Copy that. It's the weak spot in the fossil fuel Death Star.
If we can shut down its insurance, we can stop the fossil fuel Death Star from destroying our planet.
I'm getting flack from the oily money and fossil fuel big guns. Can we do it?
Of course we can do it. The whole Rebel Alliance is with us. Let's get it done.
Rebels, assemble.
Yes, this event is happening this week, actually, out in London. No insurance equals no drilling for oil, gas, and coal. The movement is iterating in what I believe is a productive direction. It's becoming more playful and approachable. And speaking of playful and approachable, I work at ustwo Games. Iterations fuel creativity in the most surprising of ways. We are a small studio, about 40 of us, in South London, and we're innovators of gaming, BAFTA-winning studio known for groundbreaking and artistic games. We are a force for good. We're the world's first B Corp certified game studio, committed to positive impact, notably planting over 1.2 million trees with the support of players for Alba, a wildlife adventure. We're makers of the unique, known for the Monument Valley series, Alba, Wildlife Adventure, Assemble with Care, and Desta, The Memories Between. And a lot of the core values of the studio align with mine. And they've also gone through iterations of genre. They went from the mysterious puzzle of Monument Valley, and then a VR puzzle in Land's End, back to the puzzle, then a modern-day puzzle with Assemble with Care. We're doing things like fixing a cassette tape player, so I guess it's retro-modern. To a mini open-world explorer with Alba, and then to a turn-based tactic game with Desta, and then back to puzzles, and then who knows what's next. Let's hone in on the Monument Valley series. Who here is familiar with Monument Valley? Oh, yay, good number, yay. Perfect. For those of you, very few of you who aren't familiar, in Monument Valley, you manipulate Escher-inspired surreal architecture through an enigmatic, beautiful world. It was released as premium mobile games, but went to Apple Arcade, PC, and now Netflix games. It has over 150 million downloads worldwide, and it's a cultural phenomenon. Won a lot of awards, BAFTAs, Apple Design Award, DICE. For a little bit more on Monument Valley, let's watch a video just to show a bit of the possibility and how it plays. So here you can see you are quite easily swiping to move the draggers, and you are rotating to move the rotators. You tap to move Ida from one place to the next, trying to get her to move on to the next part of the puzzle. We'll go on a little button here. Here it's creating the non-Euclidean famous Penrose illusion, which is what a lot of Monument Valley leans into. And here Ida goes, you can do it, getting to the exit at the top of the monument. So 2014's Monument Valley turned the puzzle game genre on its head, serving up unique mind benders involving impossible architecture and logic-defying geometry. It also earned equal attention for its ambitious visual style, absorbing score, and soul-soothing vibes. Here's another video just to show the variety, doing a lot of stage setting in here. So as you may have guessed, this game is a love letter to architecture. It's influenced by architecture from around the world, especially Moroccan and Middle Eastern. And you can see it's reflected into the gameplay and the palettes and the structures in the game. All of this lushness did not come for free. There were many, many, many iterations. A lot of the cutting room floor material ended up making it into the DLCs, downloadable content, that were released after the main game or the core game was launched. So the top left is from Forgotten Shores, which is a bit more of an adventurous experience in Monument Valley 1, or the first Monument Valley. And then the remaining are from Ida's Dream. And these were the more experimental cuts, and they didn't make it into the core game, as cool as they are, because they didn't fit the themes of the storyline, and they didn't fit the narrative. But they work really well for just cool puzzles to play. They make some sense in a dream experience, like Ida's Dream. And then there's a lot of cutting room floor material that didn't make it into the game. Here you see the different types of totems. One that is a light, and there's like a ladder totem. A lot of different types of characters, a modern day looking town, and then one where you solve a puzzle riding on the back of an elephant, which is really cool. But these didn't make it into the game, but it's this iteration and the polish that led to Monument Valley being the prestige piece that it is, with a significant cultural impact, as you can see in this snippet. Just to show a little bit about its reach and how it's hit many people and fans and the fan art they've generated. Oh yeah, and it's our 10th anniversary this year.
And the BAFTA goes to...
The BAFTA for British Game.
Monument Valley.
Monument Valley.
Little sneak peek at the boat over there on the right. Okay, so we have big shoes to fill for the third game, which brings me to the next part of the talk, sailing through uncertainty. When I joined ustwo Games about 4 years ago to direct Monument Valley 3, we started off in early development, and we kept thinking about how do you push the envelope, especially for an established world like Monument Valley. It's a third one, almost 10 years after the first one was created. How do you sail through this uncertainty? We did it by starting something small. We created a DLC as part of the Playing for the Planet's Green Game Jam. Anyone familiar with Playing for the Planet? Okay, about a third of you. Let's get familiar. So, Playing for the Planet is an initiative created in 2019, spearheaded by the United Nations Environment Program and industry leaders from console, mobile, PC gaming. And we have about 50 member studios: Supercell, woo, Rovio, SYBO, known for Subway Surfers, Sony, Google, Unity, ustwo, Ubisoft. And we focus on 1, decarbonization in our game studios, and 2, the annual Green Game Jam, where game studios add sustainability initiatives into their games. Let's talk more about this Game Jam. So the Green Game Jam is an annual event that has over 50 game studios participating, and it takes place usually in the spring. We've done it for the past, I think, 5 years now. The idea behind the Green Game Jam is, what if we took live games that are already mass-reaching and then changed them for good? What if we added events on sustainability in them? And let's do it on the same environmental theme so we can showcase our combined impact. Imagine 50 game studios fundraising for the same causes, bringing awareness to the same cause at the same time, taking something that's competitive and now making it collaborative. And check out all the games that have changed. So many. This is just a few of them, but there's so much diversity. Let's zoom in on some examples. Subway Surfers. It's an endless runner mobile game. I'm sure many of you are familiar, with over 3 billion downloads, 150 million monthly active users. What reach? Every month, the game visits a different world location, usually an urban location, and thanks to the Green Game Jam, Subway Surfers visits a location that's all about green nudging, so normalizing clean energy, more nature. 1 year it was with Bali here, as you can see. So they had recycling bins in tunnels, wind turbines in the background, rainforest setting. Oh, look at the rainbow. It also sold special in-game items whose proceeds went to charity. Riders Republic. It's a massively multiplayer sports video game by Ubisoft. And for the Green Game Jam, Riders Republic had a 2-week-long digital tree planting race, which began with an in-game climate march. Players were invited to walk together from the social hub to the in-game reforestation location, creating the first video game climate walk. So when ustwo Games joined Playing for the Planet, we weren't sure what to do, partially because we had just made a game that was all about the environmental activism called Alba: A Wildlife Adventure. This game is about nature conservation and how even the smallest person can make a difference. It started off as a bird-watching game, and then as you progress, it expands into this open-world explorer. And then eventually in the game, you get to take down the evil capitalist hotelier trying to destroy the local nature reserve. I like to think of it as a Greta Thunberg trainer. So we partnered with organizations like Ecology, and we plant a tree for every download of the game, planted so far over 1.2 million trees. And here's one example of Alba's activism. In order to protect the local nature reserve, Alba runs around the community collecting petition signatures, as you can see here. This will be important later, so bookmark. The annual Green Game Jam is a few weeks long and begins with a number of speakers who can inspire the developers on what to create and why. This talk resonated with us quite a bit. This is Peter Wolleben, author of The Hidden Life of Trees. Who has read this book? It's a nonfiction. Oh, yay. A couple of you? Oh, 3, 4, 5? Okay. Read it, please. It surprisingly reads like a fairy tale. It's quite digestible, about how trees communicate through the hormones that spread in the wind, through fungal networks that connect all their roots, that wood wide web, about how mother trees can recognize and protect their children. Protect them, from the shelter from the wind, sure, but also they strengthen their children by shading them, giving them less light so that they be growing up, so that they grow up more resilient. And he gave this talk in the forest. You can see here, it's bright out, and he's going up to each tree and saying, oh yeah, this is this tree, and talks about a bit about each one. And as he's talking, the sun begins to set until he's shrouded in complete darkness. And all you can see is a little light in the distance where his cabin is. And it was quite moving and resonated. Here is the ustwo Games team that worked on the Green Game Jam. Many had worked on Alba, and many of us are working on Monument Valley 3. A lot of plants and biophilia in these pictures. Anyway, we wanted to do something inspired by the hidden life of trees, thinking about trees speaking and caring for each other. The trees as storytellers, that beautiful darkness, and we wanted to tell this story in Monument Valley 2. So we began by looking at the cutting room floor material from both the first Monument Valley and the second one. Here's some of them that didn't make it into the game. There are a lot of tree references in Monument Valley, especially Monument Valley 2, actually, and there's a whole chapter about a tree growing and shrinking in MV2, but not necessarily resembling what nature actually does. And then we looked at other games. Who knows the game Below the Root? 1984? Yes? Yeah, just one, two? Okay. It's a video game that I had on the Apple IIc, and it's set in Zilpha Keatley Snyder's Green Sky trilogy. It's about a world covered in enormous trees and wildlife. The player is tasked to stop the world from disaster. It has this really gorgeous, mysterious tone with it. My favorite parts were flying from limb to limb, talking to animals to learn their emotional state. There in the bottom middle, the emotion of the bunny is warmth. And the bunny says, "The spirit rises within." Magical bunnies. This one is an interesting piece. This is actually fan-created, and it's the level map of Below the Root. And what I love about it is it shows the vastness of the trees and the darkness and the fungal root networks, and you can see the forest for the trees, or however that idiom goes. But we also looked at a bunch of trees. So the top two on the left there are from Florida and Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, not too far from where I grew up. Those are moss-covered trees, Spanish moss-covered trees, really lush and beautiful and strange. The crazy roots of the one on the top right. Trees growing through buildings, like the one in the bottom left here. Trees intertwined with each other in the middle. Tree houses, also a fun reference. We had a lot of tree conversations on Slack. Fen, our senior artist, talked about this Japanese technique called daisuki, where trees are grown on top of other trees. And then this reminded Maria Sayans, our CEO, about a tree that she encounters on her daily walks. Here you can see in the middle, it's the tree stump, and it has a little baby tree growing out of it, and it's quite lovely. And it's a good example of, as you can see in the chat here, nurse log reproduction, or what Volobin calls cadaver rejuvenation, really cool word, where the tree, the dead tree, is providing the nutrients and allowing for the seeds in the baby tree to blossom, to grow. So multiple rivers of influence. There's a lot of jazz back and forth with the team members, and we jammed, and we started thinking about, okay, what's our love letter to forests? There were some early sketches that we did and some mirror boarding, all within like a matter of days, thinking about the progression and what it could be. And this emerged, and it was striking. And we were all excited about it and started going in and thinking about, okay, what could this mean for the game? But then, as we kept looking at it and playing with it and pulling at it, we realized it can't make it into the game. This is not our key piece. Thematically and narratively, it didn't work. What is it saying about sacred geometry emerging from a tree stump? So we continued to explore, trying to find that central heart. So we thought more about forest-themed levels. There were some things that we did love about it, so we took what we liked. We kept thinking about, okay, what does wilderness mean in a sterile, architecture-based environment? We had other configurations of how the trees could be integrated with the architecture. This one is, Emily Brown is our lead designer, and she's thinking about she shared how dreams were beginning to solve her problems for her. She was dreaming of levels and how level design could take place for Monument Valley 2. So dreams can help us iterate, which emphasizes the importance of marination time. And so we kept going and just bashing out things. And like, I don't know if you've read this book called Lean UX, but they had talked about a way of doing pottery, of ceramics, where they took two groups. One group just focused on one piece of pottery and tried to make it the best it could be. And then another group, they're just like, make hundreds of them. And the group that, subjectively created the best pottery was the second group, the ones that were just iterating and iterating and iterating. Of course, you have to iterate in the right way. It's not just iteration for iteration's sake. But what we did here is we had thinking about, look at the aspects that we loved, the trees intertwining, the putting different configurations, upside down trees, etc. We tried to think more abstractly, like the bottom left. What if the trees weren't tied to the ground in any way? And then we tried to think, we went to the other extreme and thought more grounded at the bottom right. What if we did with especially realistic trees? We also did some totem experiments. So what if totem, which is your companion in the game, also a piece of geometry that you could use to manipulate the puzzles, what if they were tree-like and could grow and shrink? So after a while, we started zoning in on this piece here. So these are the trees being interwoven more into the geometry. This made sense. And that heavy darkness. By the way, these also didn't make it into the game, mostly as they aren't puzzles, but I still dream of this triptych. So we took what we liked, and we let the puzzle shine a bit more, resulting in, started honing in. This is one of the puzzles in the chapter. We kept developing it. It's just a few different iterations of one level. So we played around with the palettes, with the framing, with the structures and the architecture a little bit. We love that feeling of things being intertwined and the hiddenness and the silhouette of the tree. A little fun side note here in the middle. You can see the little flowers here. These flowers are actually the roof of the building miniaturized and turned upside down. So just a little fun side. Anyway, this is what became the puzzle. This is the result. The puzzle in the chapter, Monument Valley 2. The chapter is called The Lost Forest. In this chapter, you reconnect with the beauty of trees by exploring impossible architecture hidden in nature. Our hope is to remind players of their emotional connection to trees so that we remember to protect them, because they, in turn, protect us. It's quite a heart-rendering thing, because I think this week they just announced, I think, COP16, that at the Biodiversity Conference, that I believe more than one out of three tree species are likely going to become extinct. So things to keep in mind. This is happening now. This is an active thing. Let's take a look at the trailer for this. So we began and ended with a call to action to sign the Play for Forest petition, which calls on world leaders to protect forests. It's an emotional, poetic, emphatic appeal. Remember the petition in Alba? So this just made sense here. It was a good callback to it. So don't close yourself off to protracted iteration. Iterations can take different unexpected shapes. They can be over a number of games. Another good call to keep your employees for as many games as possible because of that iteration happening even between games. The petition also contained a survey asking players questions about their interests in environmental content in games. Let's go to this survey results. So in this survey, this Playing for the Planet survey was also offered by other Green Game Jam studios, about 5 other games linked to this survey, and it resulted in almost 400,000 responses in a matter of weeks, which is great, and the results are promising. We have 81% would like to see more environmental content in their games if it's relevant to the experience. 61% are motivated to pay for environmental content. And 80% are open to changing their habits, changing their behaviors after playing the green content. So it's a strong business case, and more on this study can be found on the Playing for the Planet website. Going back to the game. Traditionally, Monument Valley has dialogue presented via a ghostly storyteller. They're pretentious and enigmatic and a bit condescending. Sometimes it feels like nothing has changed when everything is different. What does it mean? So for The Lost Forest, we wanted to hear this chorus of voices from the trees. So instead of a storyteller, we had a poem between each puzzle. We had the trees as storytellers. This broke the rules of how dialogue is presented to the player in Monument Valley, but in a way that wasn't jarring for players and resembled the bookends of the petition call to action. So these are like bookmarks. And this was confirmed by playtests. They didn't feel like this was too off brand, and they also didn't complain about it. They actually thought it was quite fitting. So no news is good news. So conclusion, change is good, but sometimes no change is good. These are side-by-side comparisons of Monument Valley 1 and 2, of their tutorial, the prelude. And then, you don't mess with what works. This was the simplest way to show, 1, how to tap to move and how to use a rotator, but 2, the simplest way to show impossibility, a little allusion to the Penrose. Sure, the second one has snow and a different character, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Then again, drop-off rates for Monument Valley 2 were higher after this chapter than Monument Valley 1. So possible conclusion is that it was too similar. Possible conclusion is that players went into the game and they said, you know what, this is more of the same. I'm looking for something crazier. How do you want to interpret that? You'll have to play Monument Valley 3 when it releases on December 10 to see whether or not we iterated. We did, but also we didn't. Which brings us to our next topic, sea change. Sometimes sea change is good. So what is sea change? Sea change is a metamorphosis or alteration over time. It's a slow transformation. Sometimes this term is misused to mean incremental change. It's actually step change, just slow. Sea change comes from Shakespeare's The Tempest. Ariel sings a song to comfort Ferdinand, whose father died in a storm at sea. Full fathom 5 thy father lies, of his bones are coral made. Those are pearls that were his eyes. Nothing of him that doth fade, but doth suffer a sea change into something rich and strange. Ariel is telling Ferdinand that his father's body has been changed by the sea into something beautiful and precious, rich and strange. So it's a gradual change where the form's the same, but the substance is surprisingly different. Not just a little bit different. So sea change is gradual change. The body's taken by the sea, the bones turn into coral reef, the eyes become pearls over time, so it might be slow, but it's transformative. Side note on The Tempest, some view it as an allegory and criticism of Europeans colonizing foreign lands, and I am here for it. Okay, Monument Valley 3. It is a story of illusions, togetherness, and hope. Behind the scenes, the development team has spent years iterating on what I hope is sea change for Monument Valley. Let's watch the trailer. Look for the sea change. No, it's the prelude. Yeah, Monument Valley 2 just came out on Netflix Games yesterday, so come and get it. So the first Monument Valley features Ida, a princess searching for forgiveness as she puzzles through illusion-filled monuments. In Monument Valley 2, Ro and her child build and explore impossible architecture and sacred geometry as they both come of age and come into their own. Monument Valley 3, it's a story about light, loss, and our relationship with nature. Noah, who is the purple little lady in the left with staff, a lighthouse keeper's apprentice, journeys to explore the world of Monument Valley, searching for a new source of light before the world drowns in darkness. She searches by sailing, a bit literal on the sea change, but there you go. It's open area exploring and puzzling. We're going off grid. We introduced the ability to set sail across a water-based world. The setting on the ocean gives way to a larger map, packed with more puzzles, secrets, universe-expanding lore. All right, so here are some early sailing prototypes, and you could see it was quite stuck to the nav, especially the middle top one. We were like, oh yeah, this is open water sailing. Manesh, our lead programmer, said, you know what, let's stop and start new. Let's wipe the slate clean. And I was like, all right, let's do it. We're gonna boot camp iterate via a time-boxed pod jam. In this jam, we had a sprint. It was a 2-week sprint, actually. Maybe it was a bit longer. No, I think we started off at least with 2 weeks, where we split the team into 3 exploration pods. I think at the time we were about 20 of us. So each pod had about 4 to 5 people. One exploration was sailing. There were some sailing experiments done as the passage you see here, and they were quite limited. So it was time for open mode thinking. With loose boundaries and untethered to previous explorations. And we had a breakthrough. When you want sea change, pay careful attention to the wording of your goal or user story. I don't know how many of you have played Sky, Children of the Light, a lovely game by that game company. Oh, please play it. It's such a beautiful experience. Yeah, just a few of you, maybe 10%. In the creation of that game, I think it was Genova Chen who said they really wanted to capture that freedom of flying. So for sailing in Monument Valley 3, we wanted to have the joy of sailing. We wanted to explore what is this hopeful voyage of togetherness, one of our pillars. So we had a 4 to 5 person pod, and it was a collaboration between art, design, narrative, and tech. So we had these multidisciplinary pods. We're trying to achieve this ludonarrative cohesion. And the result is the sailing experience in the game. Now, when we did a lot of play tests, it was quite polarizing. People either really loved it, I would say like 80% of the players loved it, but then like 20%, they just weren't on board. They were traditionalists when it comes to Monument Valley. But this experience fit the game's themes and storylines so well, and it felt fresh. But yes, we're still thinking about that 20% and how to bring them on board, so to speak. Monument Valley is also a typically solitary experience. Monument Valley 1 has Ida, party of 1. I mean, she's surrounded by these antagonistic crows and the pretentious storytellers, but for the most part, she's alone. Ro and her child in Monument Valley 2, party of 2. In Monument Valley 3, again, looking for sea change, we started gradually adding in more and more characters, and to the point where it's quite a bit more. It's not just 3 characters. But still, thinking about the classics, thinking about the familiar, climbing those grandiose monuments, and then thinking about minimalist architecture in an evocative, moody atmosphere, trying to strike that balance. So thinking beyond the illusion of iteration and iterating in just the right places. So that you can sway the other way, have that contrast, that sea change, gradually adding in more and more nature until it's all nature, with a little bit of peekaboo architecture coming out. Peekaboo. Oh, there, peekaboo. And then reaching this explosion of nature, transforming from sacred geometry into something more organic and off-grid. So, not just iterating in the levels themselves, but also between levels, thinking about what order they should be in the meta. This was from a couple of years ago, where the lead artist and I were sitting at my table at home and just playing with the different prototypes that we had, and thinking about the order and shuffling them around. It was like a little game. And it's quite cozy, actually. In the first 2 Monument Valleys, they did this with these giant boards and had these pictures printed up, and it was very much like an art gallery. But here, it's a bit more like a card game. And Lily Abraham, who is the lead artist, her background is she is Vietnamese Arab, and she grew up in a refugee camp in Sweden. And I spent a number of years in Denmark, so you will see that the game has a huge Nordic influence in it. Finally, persistence and resistance. When you iterate, think about what iteration are you doing? Are you doing refinement? Are you taking a wild leap? Or are you doing sea change? Because valid results can include changing for good, changing for worse, changing for different, or no change. Think about iteration as a tool for transformative change, not just tiny refinements. And maybe not as risky as a wild leap. You can still do those, but think about also including the sea change. Can you do more of them? Jam it to chart your course. And playtest to confirm whether that's your coworkers or playtest cloud, but most of all, friends and family. We're doing actually a friends and family right now, playtest for Monument Valley 3. Sent it to more than 100 players to go through. And I think in my pocket, I'll be finding out the results of how that's going. My daughter playtests quite a bit. She's super honest and perceptive, which is the best combo. So thank you for that. Thank you for all your critiques. Sometimes you end up going back to the drawing board, and that's okay. So I want to encourage you all to embrace the uncertainty of iteration, but also see through its many illusions. Persist and resist. Here we have a nice QR code if you want to pre-register to Monument Valley 3 and see how much of it aligns or misaligns with what I've shared with you today. What do you think is actually the sea change in the game? It will be coming out on December 10, so ping it up or ping me if you want to play test. If you have questions, comments, or just want to do karaoke, email me at estaris@ustwo.com. And I believe that, I don't know if I like that one. Let's move it up a bit more. Yeah. Okay. Let's make it bigger. Let me zoom it out. Yes! Oh, the D, but that's okay. It's good. Go big or go home. Be curious, be playful, strive to better ourselves and each other. Don't be a dino shark with a snout of doom. Thank you very much. Hello.
Maybe we join you?
Yes, come on in. Yay.
Thank you. Let's stand here in the center, nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Please, Jennifer, accept our heartfelt thank yous.
Thank you.
That was monumental.
Okay, we have a few questions for you.
Sure, but first, thank you for having me here. It's also monumental, but it's also quite a sea change for me. I've not done a 360 stage. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, I think.
It's good pressure.
Pressure.
Build up and explode and sea change.
Slightly intimidating.
Yeah.
Let's make it even more intimidating.
Oh, right.
We have questions.
Okay, let's do it.
Yes, so it's about social impact.
Yes.
When did you realize that you could, with your work in games, make a difference?
So, thinking about it, I think I want to say sea change because it's my theme, but I think it was a gradual change over time. I've always been into it, but maybe one of the most memorable times was, I think 15 years ago, I was working on Neopets, and there is a virtual world aspect of Neopets called Pet Pet Park. And in that game, you can go around and collect foods and make your own foods, and you can do other things, play games, etc. One of the things I kept telling my coworkers was, why do we make food with meat in it? These are little pets that are eating, like, they're not eating each other. So why don't we make that food vegetarian? And there was a bit of like, why is this important? But I think with these small changes, it can influence not only the players who are playing the game, but also the developers. So us thinking about being more conscious of these aspects. And I remember getting some messages from fans saying, oh, thank you for making the food vegetarian. And it's just lovely to see.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good, yeah. We know that Monument Valley 3 is coming out on December 10th, I believe.
Yeah.
So could you share with everyone, what do you think would be one thing that everybody should know, needs to know about Monument Valley 3? One
thing that everybody needs to know about Monument Valley 3 that I haven't already shared. I think one of the things I was excited about, and my lead designer as well, is thinking about the quiet rebellion. How do we do a gentle rebellion? How do we change the world in a cozy way? And maybe when you play the game, you can see, are the regenerative, rebellious elements coming out? How do we form a new society in the little course of a tiny game? And that's what we're hoping to be able to do.
Small feet.
Yes, it's tiny feet.
Okay, and if I were to ask you what your favorite thing was, or what you are most excited about, would the answer be the same, or would it be something different?
It would be the same. I think I'm also excited about how ustwo Games does a lot of charity partnerships for each of their games. And we're hoping to do the same for Monument Valley. So for example, Alba Wildlife Adventure, planting trees. With Desta, the Memories Between, we partnered with UK Youth, providing for youth centers. So I can't wait to see what charity partnership we'll have for Monument Valley 3.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears,
all right,
if you will. I don't know what you thought about my attempt at karaoke earlier. Could you share us what your favorite karaoke song is?
Oh, no.
Or
so
like
many.
Your 3 go-tos.
My 3 go-tos. Well, I try to do a different song each time. I was trying to think about, there's one that's like about history repeating by the Propellerheads, Shirley Bassey and the Propellerheads. And I sing it again. No, I'm not going to do it.
Nice.
No, but it's fun to like pretend to be a performer.
Yeah.
So, and I highly recommend everybody to do it if you see it happening at a game event or out in the wilds, because it's rejuvenating in a way that we need. It's quite healing, strangely.
It sounds amazing, and this, I must say, was the first time for me learning about karaoke.
Oh, cool.
But I'm interested. I kind of want to do it. Not now. No
Maybe later
respawning,
tonight.
please.
No respawning?
No, later maybe.
It's clever because it's people who rewrote the songs are game developers, and they are putting their souls into the rewrites. It's very Weird Al Yankovic, but with video games. So very relatable, very network friendly. If you're looking for that.
Yeah.
Well, this event is all about networking.
Yeah, this
so
too.
Who knows? Maybe later tonight.
Yeah.
Maybe next time we do games first, we should start it with or end it, or both, with a big karaoke spiel.
Let's just do a full day of karaoke while we're at it.
I love it. Done.
I wonder if anybody's going to join. Maybe.
Sing. Let's all sing
let's
together.
sing.
Don't stop
responding. Okay. Do we have more questions?
Well, I think we have some time to kill. Yes. We hear from our little button in our ears that we still have a couple of minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I spoke fast because I was so excited to be on stage. So
very understandable.
Quite fast, but
Well, what would you say for someone who's like maybe an indie developer, they have their game and they are only just starting to think about like, hey, there's this social impact aspect.
Yeah.
How could I go about it? Like what advice would you give for someone just wanting to like take small steps or like just take social impact into account?
Absolutely. So first, go to those websites that I mentioned. So Playing for the Planet is a great site. A lot of materials on there that you can look at. A lot of games you can play. The IGDA Climate SIG, I know that's a bit of a mouthful, International Game Developers Association. IGDA Climate SIG has a lovely website with lots of resources. And we have a very active Discord. So the Discord's in the link. Come there. We have monthly meetings on Discord, get to chat and network with each other. And what's best about that is that you can talk about your game, share what you're trying to do, get some climate advice from a lot of climate experts. Of course, if you are well-funded, you should pay for the climate expert advice. But if you're still exploring, I think we're quite a helpful community where we'd love to check out your game and see where we can help cultivate those themes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Off the top of your head, I know it's always a bit putting you on the spot.
Yeah, that's fine.
Could you maybe think of something, an example, an unexpected example in a game that you've seen that's been really impressive when it comes to climate activism?
Yeah, so many games, but I think the one I've been thinking about the most is I was a teenage exocolonist, and what I love about it is, first of all, at first I had a problem because it's like, this is a game about colonizing, this is not good, but actually it's a game about if you have to colonize, if you have to move somewhere new, if you have to become refugees somewhere, how do you fit in with that new society? And it has, I think, at least 17 different endings, so you can really explore the different types of ways you can integrate or not integrate or battle with the community that you're joining. So also it's a fun little game, so I highly recommend playing it.
Wow. What was the name of the game?
I was a teenage exocolonist.
Such a great name.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, but it's still good.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you so much.
And you're relieved.
Yay!
Jennifer Estaris, let's give her a big round of applause.